Hello, my name is Jacob Monk. I'm living here in Copenhagen and am a watch collector. This video is about the best watches in the world. And of course, it is made out of my personal opinion. What is the best watch in the world? That's a subjective judgment, but I have some criteria I want to introduce to you. Maybe you know them already. And if you look behind me, you can already now see what kind of watches I'm talking about. Well, first let me introduce you to the criterias. What are the best watches in the world? Well, from my point of view, the best watches, it is the watches you can use and at the same time being discreet. You don't use a watch to show off. You use a watch because you want to know what time it is. A watch is not primarily a decorative thing you wear around to show how much money you have. A watch is a practical thing you use to see what time it is, so you can open the television at the right time, show up to your school at right time, go home from work at the right time, and so on and so forth. So discretion is one of my criteria of a watch being a quality watch. Criteria number 2, it is price. I think a watch does not have to be very expensive to be a good watch. Actually, if you have two watches being equal, I would say that the cheapest of these two watches is the best watch. Because if you just buy a watch because you want to use money, then why don't you give these money to the poor somewhere out in the world? Why don't you give the rest of the money you want to use to the poor and buy a cheaper watch? Well, the only reason for buying a more expensive watch instead of a cheaper watch is if you think that the more expensive watch has a higher quality. If two watches are exactly equal, you should always buy the cheapest. Criteria number 3 for quality is readability. You have to be able to read what time it is. Well, why don't you look behind me here on the background? I tried to disappear for a moment, and you can see there are different watches here. Actually, there are 11 watches. And there are also some watches up in the top, but they are quite difficult to see. But among these 11 watches, it's easy to see that some of the watches, they are more easy to read. For example, watch number 11, it can be hard to read because the glass in front of the watch deal, it reflects the light. So if you are out in bright sunshine, if you hold your hand in a certain angle, then you won't be able to read the watch. And the same goes for watch number 1. You can see right now it's very difficult to read what time it is on that watch because the light is reflected in the glass. So it's not very usable, this watch. But then we can go to, for example, watch number 2. It's very easy to read. It's 9:32. That's the time it is now. And we can also take watch number 4, 9:32. Easy to read. Watch number 5, 9:32. Easy to read. Watch number 6, easy to read. Watch number 8, not so easy to read. Well, I'm able to read it, but the contrast between the background and the foreground is not so sharp, so it can't be quite hard to read. And when you come to watch number 10, it's somehow the same, because as you see here, they are all digital watches. I only use digital watches. Why? Because I think digital watches, they are the best. They are much better than analog watches, better than mechanical watches, and better than all other kind of watches. I love especially the two companies, Casio and SKMEI. Most Casio watches are made in China, and SKMEI watches, they are made in China too. The only difference is that Casio watches, they are made by a Japanese company called Casio. They make keyboards and table calculators as well. But I'm only interested in the watches. The other company I'm interested in called SKMEI. It is a Chinese company. They are located in China, and the watches they are made in China. They only make watches, nothing else. And you can see SKMEI watches here in the background. I'm showing, for example, watch number 6. It's a SKMEI watch. And let me see if there are any more SKMEI watches here. I don't think so. The rest of, yes, watch number 5, it's a SKMEI watch too. So there are two SKMEI watches here. But the picture you see here is quite old, so I have much more SKMEI watches today. Well, I want to come back to the picture, and here I am. We are talking about what is quality of watches. Readability is very important. I've just talked about that. Then I have number 5. It is to have what do you call it? A watch strap. I have a watch strap here. You see, it's easy to see because it's blue. And this watch strap, it is from watch number. And sorry, I move myself to the side of the picture here. Watch number 6, that's the one I'm wearing right now. You see the watch band, it's made of resin. And from my opinion, resin is very nice to look at. And it can have many different colors. It has no problem with being out in rainy weather. It can take a lot of force. It won't break very fast. But there is a problem with scratching. If I wear a watch like number 6, maybe I'll feel a bit of scratching on my arm because of this resin band. It creates some kind of irritation on my skin. I'm not quite sure about this, but I think it's more convenient to wear a watch like number 5 here. It has a leather strap. On number 4, it has a NATO strap. Well, actually, most of my watches, they have NATO straps. For example, watch number 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, they are all NATO straps. And I think most NATO straps, they are very good because you are able to adjust the watch. So no matter how tight you wear the strap, the watch will be located on the exact right place on your arm, and that is here in the middle, so you can read it very easily just by turning your arm like that. Then you can read it. If you have a strap like the one used here on watch number 5, then you can't adjust the precise location of the watch compared to the strap. It's because this strap has two parts, and these two parts, they have a certain length. It is made from the manufacturer, and you can't adjust it. So you can't move the watch in one or the other direction if it fits you the way it is, then it's very good. If it does not fit you, then it's not so good because you can't change it. But this watch band, it is a very important factor when it comes to watches. And I'm so lucky that all the watches I have here, I'm able to change the watch band if I want. I can change a resin band for a NATO band and the other way around, a leather band for a resin band, and so on and so forth. So I can, although I'm not a watchmaker, I'm not very skilled when it comes to changing watches and doing a lot of practical things with watches. I'm only a practical man that has a hobby, and watches, they are my hobby. Well, we are still talking about what is a good watch. And now we come to simplicity. I think if you have two watches and they are quite equal, they are the same in every way except one. One is more simple than the other. Then the most simple watch is the best. I prefer simple watches for complicated watches. And let's look at the watches here once again. Well, all these watches, they are quite simple, but some of them are even more simple than the rest. What is the most simple? For example, watch number 8 is a very simple watch. So I like it. If you compare it to watch number 11 is not so simple because you can adjust both the hands of the watch and the bezel around the watch and the time, and of course you can adjust the date and the weekday. That is quite a lot of functions you can adjust, and every functions make it more complicated. And every time you make it a watch more complicated, it will be more difficult to correct, and it will take time. When you use a complicated watch in the practical world, then you don't have the time to adjust the things you need to adjust, and then you use the watch that is not correct adjusted. Maybe it shows the wrong date, maybe it shows the wrong time, or maybe something else is wrong. You simply don't have the time to adjust it. And if you have the time, maybe you don't remember in your head how to adjust it, because it can be rather complicated, especially when it comes to digital watches, how to adjust time, how to adjust the settings, and how to use the 3 or 4 different buttons on the watch. Where, for example, if you see watch number 6, it has 4 different buttons. So it should be a bit more complicated than a watch like number 2 that has 3 different buttons. But for example, watch number 3, watch number 1, watch number 6, watch number 5, watch number 10, they all have 4 buttons, and therefore they are a bit more complicated than the rest of the watches that only has 3 buttons. But never mind if you have 3 or 4 buttons, at the start of your career as a watch user, as a user of digital watches, you need to read the manual. So I have all my manuals stored on my computer in PDF format. Well, let's continue the list of what is a good watch. We have simplicity, that's what we have just been talking about. And then there is something called how long time the watch will be usable. I could say it in Danish, it's called holdbarhed. Holdbarhed can be translated as usability, ruggedness. What can the watch take when you use it? For example, if you take a watch, and now I put back my camera here, and I think I'll point the camera. No, I won't point it anywhere. I'll let it point to myself. Well, here I have a watch, and if I take this watch and I knock it with something hard. I don't have a hammer here, but I could do like this. This was me knocking the watch on my table. Well, how many times can I do that before the watch is breaking? If I freeze down these watches, put it in a freezer and take it out, the next day, will the watch be broken? If I put it underwater, will it be damaged? If I do like this, I shake it. If I use some motor tool I'm working, my hand will be shaking. How about the watch? Will it break? That is all about the ruggedness of the watch. And I think a watch should be as rugged as possible. Well, forgive me for moving around on your screen. But now we are coming to number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Quality indicator number 9. What is a good watch? That is what I'm talking about. And this is the ability of the watch to live, although it has been underwater for some time. I think most watches they can take if you wash your hands and there will come a drip or two on the watch, it won't break because of that. But then if you go outside in the rain, here in Scandinavia it's raining a lot. If I go outside and the rain comes to my watch, will it break? If I go to the swimming pool during the summer, or I have an indoor swimming pool here a few kilometers from my home. If I go there, first I go in the shower, and then I go in the sauna, and at last I go in the swim bath and swimming for maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Will my watch break? If it's not breaking, then it is watertight. I don't know if this is the right word, but it can stand water. And that is very important for a watch, because if you have a watch, it will get wet. If it's by rain, it's by washing your hands or some other reasons, it will get wet. And if it can't take getting wet, then it's not a good watch. And all my watches here, they can take getting wet for certain times. And most of them, I've tested them. I've taken them in a bowl of water and they have been there for 10 minutes, and then I took them up and dried them, and they were working, all of them, after being wet. For some of my watches, I've used them in the swim bath, under the shower, even in sauna. I've used a few of my Casio watches there, and that didn't affect their usability. So they're quite rugged, these watches, and they have to be. And the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to quality is precision. If a watch is good, it's also quite precise. And when you buy a Casio watch, normally you can read in the manual that the watch will be, it's a quartz watch, of course, it will go plus minus 1 second a day, plus minus 1 second a day. And this is an understatement, normal, because a lot of people, including myself, have been testing the precision of Casio watches, and I would say they can be much more precise than plus minus 1 second a day. I would say the general rule for Casio watches is plus minus half a second a day, and even less. So in 1 week you can you will have to believe that your watch will be plus minus 3 seconds. In 1 month, maybe 10 or 12 seconds. And in 1 year, it will be around 1 or 2 minutes. So you will have to adjust your watch. For example, every time we go from so-called summertime to so-called wintertime, that is 2 times every year you will have to adjust your watch, because it's not acceptable from my personal opinion that a watch is more than 1 minute wrong. And what is the right time? Well, that can be discussed. But if we say that the right time, the precise time, is the time you read at the internet, is the time that the internet is adjusted after. If you use Windows computer, you will see down in your right corner of your screen, there is a time. Not only it shows hours, it also shows minutes, but it's not showing seconds. So you only know the precise time at the moment that this time indicator is changing from 1 minute to another. But you can't install a so-called radio-controlled watch, an app on your mobile phone that makes contact to an atomic watch, and then your time will be even more precise than the time you have on your computer. Well, I've talked about the 11 indicators of quality that makes some watches better than others. And here at last, I will show you 2 watches I have. All my watches are very good. I have to tell you that all my watches are good. But there's something I evaluate more important than other things when it comes to watches. And one thing is the light. Let me show you a watch with a very good light here. I hope it's the right watch I have. Yeah. Yeah, I have a watch. It's a Casio watch, and it's not so easy to see. I have to admit that. So therefore, I'll go to my I'll make a little change in my settings. So yeah, now I've removed the virtual background, and you can see some watches I use on a daily basis, and they are all good. As I told you before, I don't have any non-good watches. But here you see a watch with a very good light. And this was not the light function, sorry. I tried to press here. You see the light is illuminating the whole screen. It is very easy to see what time it is. If you have another watch with the light where the light is not so good as before, you can take this one. Well, it's illuminating the whole screen, so you're able to see what time it is, even if it's dark. But it's not so clear as the first watch I showed to you. And here I'll show you another Casio watch, and this has electroluminance. Yeah, I think electroluminance is the absolute pivot of watch quality when it comes to backlight. And the good thing about SKMEI watches, and as I told you from the beginning, I only have two kind of watches. The one is Casio and the other is SKMEI. I believe that these are the best watches in the world. And now, at last, to the last, I'll show you a very, very good and also very cheap SKMEI watch. Of course, I bought it in China from AliExpress. And look here. It's so easy to read. When I press the button once, it will show the time for 3 seconds. And that's very convenient. I don't have to keep the button pressed down. I can just unlock it, and the watch will show the time for 3 seconds, and it's very easy to see. So here, let me make some kind of a gallery with some of my favorite watches. I could show you more because I have around 20 watches, and here you see only 5 of them. Some are SKMEI and some are Casio. You know, SKMEI watches, it used to be a branch of copies of Casio watches, but they have changed their politics when it comes to watch models. So today, SKMEI watches, they have some copies of Casio watches, but most of these copies, SKMEI has made some small changes, and yeah, you see me again. They have made some small changes um, to the watch quality, the functions of the watch, so it is even better than it was in the version that was introduced by Casio. And now you see my favorite background again. Well, the conclusion of this video is that the best watches in the world, according to me, Jacob Monk from Copenhagen, it is Casio watches and SKMEI watches. I'm so lucky that exactly these two branches of watches, they are among the cheapest watches in the world. So you can always buy a Casio watch and a SKMEI watch. They're made in China, and being a big fan of China, I like to think that I'm supporting international trade. international trade. That is what makes peace in the world. So therefore, if you like peace, you must support international trade, and that is trade between the Western consumer world and the Eastern world, especially China, that is the biggest factory in the world, also when it comes to watches. And forget all about the old saying that everything coming from China, it is trash, it is low quality. Not at all. It only depends on yourself. If you pay the right kind of money, you will get the right kind of quality, no matter where in the world you buy your watches. These watches I have here, it is excellent quality, absolute top quality, and they are cheap at the same time. But I could buy them even cheaper if I wanted, but then I would have to buy a lot of watches of the same model. Then I could go to Alibaba and buy maybe 500 watches of some certain model, and they would cost maybe $1 per watch. If I buy only one watch from AliExpress or from a company here in Copenhagen, Denmark, it will cost quite a lot more, but still not as much as an American made watch or a Japanese made watch. Well, the conclusion of this is that watches are wonderful. They are an example of excellent quality. They are used for everything you want. Today you have watches all over. You have watches in your mobile phone. The most used watch in the world is this one here, the one you have in your mobile phone. But when you want to see the time very fast, then and easy, and maybe you don't have your mobile phone with you because you are being in a milieu with water and you don't want your mobile phone to get wet, then you must use your which watch, the watch you have here. Well, are there any questions? I don't know, but don't believe the myth that every watch is of the same quality. That is not true. Every watch has its own quality, and the watches I've shown you here, they are all of top quality. So this was the end. Thank you for listening.